circumference of circles. So we're switching gears here. We're switching shapes, but we're sticking with our geometry. This is our next lesson in your note packet. If you don't have the note packet, you know where you're taking notes in your learning log. Get the title. Get the learning target. I can calculate the circumference of a circle given the radius or diameter. And then let's get the definition of circumference. Remember, this is a video. You can pause and rewind at any time. Make sure you're listening because I'm not going to write everything that I say, right? So get all the important things down from listening. All right, circumference is the distance around a circle. We like to equate that to the idea of perimeter, where perimeter is the distance around a shape. So circle just gets a fancy word for perimeter, and that is circumference. So we're talking about the outside of that circle, okay? In fact, my head's in a little circle right now, right? So that would be going around my head. Okay, how do I calculate circumference? Well, you either need to know the diameter of the circle or the radius. So fill in those blanks. And then we're going to define those two things. Diameter is the distance across a circle through its center. So I'm going to do diameter in green. Now I take that back. I'm going to erase that for radius. And I have a circle down here. And I'm going to make the center of the circle red so you can see it. So my diameter would be from one point on the circle traveling all the way through that center to another point on the opposite side. That's your diameter. And I would do that with a straight edge if I could on here on the gym, but I can't. You use a straight edge in your notes to draw that, okay? So that's a diameter. Radius, let's do that in gold. Radius is the distance from the center, so start at the center, to any point on the circle, which means it's half the length of the diameter. So you start at the center and go to any point on that circle. That's your radius. And you can see it's half the length of the diameter. Oh, my writing is terrible. Radius. Okay. So we have two formulas depending on what we have. If we know the diameter, our formula equals circumference is pi, something called pi, times diameter. Okay. C stands for circumference. That funky little symbol stands for pi. And pi is a number that never stops. 3.142 something says that. Okay, so but we're going to use 3.14 for pi. Your calculator, which you'll also be allowed to use, also has a pi button, but typically we'll tell you to type in 3.14 for that. Or if you know radius, then your formula for circumference is 2 times pi times r. Okay, so we have two different formulas, and which one we use depends on what we're given. So let's look at some examples and see how this works. All right, my first example. These are kind of level 1 examples because you're told what you're given, and then you just have to decide what formula to use. All right, D equals 54. D clearly stands for the D word, which is diameter. So we would say, I know diameter, okay? So that means the formula that I'm going to use is my green. C equals pi times D times diameter. Okay, so I'm going to substitute in, keep my C because that's what I'm looking for, circumference. Pi, remember I said we're going to use the truncated version 3.14, and then we're going to multiply that by 54. All right, so you can type that into your calculator, and when you do, you should get C is equal to 169 and 56 hundredths, 0.56 feet. So the distance around this first circle is 169 and 56 hundredths feet. That's its circumference. All right, and then we have another example right next door. R equals 5m. Find circumference. Well, R means radius, so this time I know radius. So that's going to change the formula that I use. I'm going to use my gold formula, which is C equals 2 times pi times r. You can put your dots in there for times or just write them right next to each other. All right, so substitute in 2 times 3.14 times r, which is 5. Some of this math I can do without a calculator. Remember, the commutative property says you can multiply in any order and still get the same product. So I'm going to do my whole numbers. 2 times 5 is 10 times 3.14. And don't we love powers of 10? We don't need a calculator with a power of 10. That power of 10 is just going to move our decimal one place. So our answer is going to be 31 and 4/10 meters. So for our second example, the circumference, the distance around that circle is 31 and 4/10 meters. Didn't even have to use a calculator. That's the best. All right, now we're at like a level 2 problem. Here's a picture, right? So tell me what you know. Well, looking at that picture, am I given radius or diameter? The line stops at the center, right? It doesn't go all the way through. So that means I know not radius. Radius is 4 centimeters. This time I'm going to say what it is because it doesn't tell us up above. Okay, so because I know radius, then I'm sticking with my gold. And I'm going to use the formula 2 times pi times r. Substitute in. 2 stays the same. Pi becomes 3.14. R becomes 4. 2 times 4 is 8. So now I have 8 times 3.14. And boy, you could be a big shot student and do that side math. Practice your multiplication with decimals. That'd be awesome. Or you can go to your calculator and get the circumference to be 25 and 12 centimeters. It's not telling us a place to round. So the only thing in the practice that we push out to you, make sure you're rounding to the correct decimal place if it's stated. All right, and then we have a level 3 question. Here's the word problem. Big Ben is a famous clock in London. The diameter of the clock face is 23 feet. Find the circumference of the clock face. Some of you will help to draw a picture. Some of you can pull it from the words. Diameter of clock face is 23 feet. So what do I know? I know the diameter is 23 feet. I pulled it out from words. Some of you might want to draw that picture. Draw that picture and label that clock face, especially my artists in the group. You can draw that Big Ben clock, right? There it is. And diameter would go through. Okay, so that means I'm going to use circumference equals pi times diameter. So we're using 3 and 14/100 for pi. 23 is my diameter. I can do that side math and impress, or we can use the calculator. And you will get 72 and 22/100 feet is the circumference of the face of that clock of Big Ben. Who knew? Now you do. All right, let's bring this to practice.